Welcome to Stop My Crisis. I'm your host, Vivian Gaspar. Do you know anyone who's been injured or hurt and then they just couldn't work and they wondered how could they take advantage of their disability insurance? Well, we're really fortunate to have with us here today Nancy Cavey. She is a nationwide ERISA and private disability insurance attorney who has just written a new go-to book, The Disability Insurance Claims Survival Guide for Professionals. She knows firsthand what it is like to make a difficult decision to stop working, apply for benefits, and take on the disability insurance company. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for sharing with us some information that likely will change so many people's lives, because when they get denied by their insurance company, what do? They're paralyzed. They don't know what to do. And you're here to dispel that. Why did you write this book?
This is the book my mother and father never had. My dad was a World War II Navy Air Corps pilot who fought in the Pacific. And when he came home, he got married, raised a family like most veterans did. He went to work at the family insurance brokerage business and purchased a disability insurance policy so that if he became disabled, he would be able to provide an income. But when he was diagnosed with leukemia, he had to make that difficult decision to stop working. And you know, back in the day, there wasn't a book that explained to even a professional how to apply for disability benefits, the games the carriers were going to play, and what they needed to know. So this book I've written in honor of my mother and father.
I'm sure they feel honored, especially thanking your father for his service in World War II. But I'm sure most people are, and I don't want to call people naive, but they trust the system that you pay insurance, well, your monthly premiums, and you expect that they'll do the right thing and then, of course, pay a claim when there is a just claim. And you're saying that's not really the case.
That is not the case. There are many pitfalls in the disability insurance claims process, and they even start at the beginning, before you stop working. Unfortunately, people don't know what's in their disability insurance policy, so before you stop working, you should get a copy of the policy and figure out what do you have to prove to get those benefits, because the disability carrier isn't going to just send you a check FedEx because you sent in an application.
But isn't that the whole point of insurance and what they advertise? I mean, that is exactly the purpose of getting it.
Well, you're right. There is a federal judge by the name of Judge Eslin who said, look, when disability carriers make the decision as to whether they're going to pay or deny, they don't let simple things like facts get in the way of their profit. Isn't that stunning? You have a federal judge who says, this isn't a level playing field, and it isn't. And you need to know that from the very beginning, from the time you purchase the policy to the time you stop working, to the time you apply, and then dealing with the insurance company if they deny your benefits.
I think most people don't realize that you should even have an attorney for that purpose, because why should you need it? You just hope that they do the right thing and not even think about it until you do have an injury that causes you not to be able to work, right?
Oh, right. I share that frustration. I mean, I know firsthand what my mother and father went through, going to the disability carrier every month with forms, hoping that they would pay benefits. But, you know, carriers use the golden rule.
The golden rule?
The golden rule.
What's that?
Do you know what the golden rule? It's not what you and I were taught the golden rule was.
Ah, you mean don't treat others as you like to be treated? That golden rule?
That's not the golden rule that they use. The golden rule that a disability insurance company uses is they'll collect your gold and they'll invest it in real estate because they want to make lots of money for their shareholders. But when you apply for benefits, guess what happens?
They deny it.
They rule that you're not entitled to your benefits.
Oh, that rule.
That's the golden
I was going to say, what rule could it possibly be?
That's the golden rule. Again, I think that you need to get a copy of that disability insurance policy because it will walk you through what it is you need to do to get your benefits. And there could be exclusions for all sorts of medical conditions that might limit what you get. There can be reductions in your benefits for the receipt of Social Security benefits. There might be a mental nervous limitation that limits benefits to just 2 years.
Did you just say mental?
Nervous limitation.
What does that mean?
There is no uniform disability policy in the United States, Vivian, so we have to look at every policy, and there is a limitation called a mental nervous limitation. And it says that if you're disabled because of a depression or anxiety, your benefits can be limited to just 2 years. And so these are the kinds of things you need to know before you stop working and apply for benefits. How long am I going to get my benefits?
I mean, that could happen for any reason. What if somebody has trifecta of situations in their lives that basically could lend itself to a nervous breakdown. You don't know when that's going to happen. You could be a psychologically sound person one day, and some kind of tragedy could strike, and that could cause that. So isn't that something you should make sure that's not or in your policy before you get it or before you sign on the dotted line and start paying your premiums?
Absolutely, but many policies are purchased through employers, and employers' HR departments don't know what are in these policies. And to make them more affordable for their employees, there are these mental nervous policy limitation provisions that limit the benefits to 2 years. There's something even worse, and you want to know what that is?
What's worse than that?
A Social Security disability offset. So the policy says, look, we'll pay you your disability benefits with one hand. But with this hand, we'll reduce the amount of your benefits by any money you or your children receive for Social Security disability benefits. So the right hand pays and the left hand takes it away.
So then you have a balancing act, which ultimately can make it more difficult to meet your financial obligations, and which is the entire reason for having this policy.
Correct, but you need to know all this before you either purchase the policy or you are applying for the benefits. Because many times I give people bad news and say, look, I know you're disabled, but let me tell you what happens in this policy, because we have to set your financial expectations appropriately.
As an employee, can you then ask them if you can modify a policy, even if you want to pay any more money to make it a better policy for your needs?
The answer is no, because you don't own the policy, your employer owns the policy. But what you should be doing, if you can afford it, is to have an individual disability insurance policy that you buy through with your own agent, and you can tailor your insurance to whatever your needs are. So for example, if you're a physician, you can potentially get an own occupation policy. You want to have a policy that's tailored to you and your personal needs.
Is it really going to be affordable for someone to get an attorney? Is it really necessary to get just to get your benefits?
Yes. I mean,
That's so sad. I mean, the fact is, they should be getting paid out, right? You're paying in, you should be able to claim, but you're saying that it's important.
certainly. There are times in the life of a policy where claims get denied. It's the transition between short-term to long-term disability. In many policies, the definition of disability changes after 2 years, from an inability to do your own occupation to any occupation. So guess what happens?
Any occupation?
But guess what happens at that transition? They deny the claim. If you don't have a lawyer during the appeals process, you can absolutely lose your claim because you only have 180 days in which to file an appeal. And if you don't file the appeal and you go to court, you know what the judge is going to say?
Why didn't you file the appeal within 180 days?
Right, because you didn't exhaust your administrative remedies and give the carrier a right to correct the decision. You're out of court and you lose.
And of course, you can't say to the judge, but I didn't know, because ignorance is never an excuse.
You're correct.
Unfortunately.
You're correct.
It seems to me what you're saying, that the government or the laws are formulated to not protect individual people, but the insurance companies. Is that because of lobbyists, or am I just not understanding your responses? Is that really the case, though?
Yes.
Yes. The
Yes.
one short answer. Is it because of lobbyists? Why is that?
Okay, in the ERISA Act, and this governs group health determinations too, there is something, Vivian, I call the golden handcuff. In that policy, there's something called a discretionary clause. And you know whose discretion is binding?
The insurance company's discretion.
Right. They have the right to determine the terms of the policy and whether you're disabled. And if you disagree and you ultimately end up in federal court, they say to the judge, you have a handcuff. We have the discretion. And unless it's something called arbitrary and capricious, it's difficult for a federal judge to overturn, even if they wanted to, a claims denial. It's that standard of review. So if we had Congress take out of the ERISA law the arbitrary and capricious standard, we'd be great. Now, there are a number of states in the United States whose state insurance commissioners prohibit that discretionary clause. And guess what? It becomes a level playing field for the policyholder and the insurance company.
Professionalism. They've taken the time to cultivate their career, obtain their education, and now they have a family who relies on them and their income. It is extremely, really important they get not just the right policy, but that they even have disability insurance. So thank you very much for writing the book that will guide them to getting the right, of course, policy for them before they even need to file the claim. But if they ever need to, that we now know that you're a great resource to help them make sure the insurance companies do what they're supposed to be doing. Nancy, thank you very much. And please remember, if something happens to you or someone you love and you have a disability claim, don't leave it up to the insurance companies to hold your life in their hands. Contact a highly specialized attorney who knows exactly what to do to get the benefits that you deserve after paying those premiums, such as calling Nancy Cavey. And that's how you stop your crisis.